So now that Robert Mueller is looking into Donald Trump's financial and business dealings with certain wealthy Russians connected to the Russian government, things are coming to light that would suggest that certain financial dealings with that we don't know of with the Russian government are certainly possible and even more likely, as he had been seeking certain deals before. Now, one of the deals that we've talked about, not at length, is a hotel deal Trump tried to do with Moscow. Well, that's very interesting. Now, look, doing business with Moscow is not a crime in itself. So let me be very clear. But wait till you get a load of who's actually involved in this specific deal. Now, this is according to a recent Washington Post report. They said that when Trump was running for president back in 2015, he'd signed an agreement to develop a Trump Tower in Moscow. Again, it's not really a big problem. The timing is a little weird, right? Oh, you're running for president and you're trying to do a business deal. And maybe he thought that he wasn't going to win. So, okay, we'll assign that anyway. We'll try to get this development deal done, whatever. And then he decided, and then he actually went on to win and then become president of the United States. But at that time, you could make the argument, and it'd be a good argument, that he didn't know, so he was going to do business as usual as a fallback, right? So there's no problem, right? But Trump's partner, however, in this deal was a Russian development company that apparently previously obtained financing from a Russian bank named Sberbank. Now, that is state-owned, right? Now, this state-owned bank also had to be under sanctions at the time, in 2015, from the United States and the European Union due to Russia's annexation of Crimea. So President Obama, after the annexation, goes in and says, okay, we're going to sanction all you Russian banks for doing that, all right? So you can't do business with Russian banks anymore. You can't get financing. Okay, so there's kind of the gist of it. Now let's get into some of the details, right? Because when you get into the details of this deal, this attempted deal, you'll see some familiar names. Now, this was back in October of 28th in 2015. This is after the Russian sanctions were put into place. Now, Trump, while he's running for president, and the day of a debate, a Republican debate, Trump had signed a letter of intent with a Russian firm called IC Expert Investment Company to develop a Trump-branded tower in Moscow. Now, information on the company is sparse, reports the Washington Post, but a website that appears to be for the company describes it as a developer of an apartment complex in a suburb of Moscow called Roitov. Now, the website lists the company's development and banking partners, including Sberbank. So, this company, IC Investment Company, is funded and has a banking partner in Sberbank that is a government-controlled bank that is under sanction. Now, the website that appears to be the official site for the apartment complex, Novoskino 2, notes that Sberbank and another bank, Otkritie Bank, sorry, these are Russian, so I'm probably saying them wrong, that's another privately owned Russian bank, provided financing for this project. The apparent IC Expert site also states that another one of its strategic banking partners is a bank called Gazprom Bank. Now, that's actually one of the biggest banks in Russia, which also owns Gazprom Media, the largest media holding company in Russia. So these banks, they're backing real estate projects, right? And since Trump wanted to build a hotel in Moscow, and since no bank in America would actually fund any of Donald Trump's projects, he burned those bridges long ago, he had to go to some business partners with connections to Russian banks. Now, again, it would make sense to partner with Russian banks if you're going to build a hotel in Russia. So, again, okay. Now, this person that ended up securing funding for him is somebody that we already know. But first, before I get into him, the bank that secured the funding is Sberbank. Now, again, that is one of the largest banks in all of Europe and is a prominent commercial lender in Russia. And it's also majority owned by the central bank of the Russian government. That explains why it ended up on the sanctions list after the Russian annexation of Crimea in 2014, and the other bank, Gazprom Bank, was also placed on that list. Now, Trump's connections with Sberbank were a little bit more direct. Now, the previous year, this is 2014, Sberbank was a co-sponsor of the Miss Universe contest, then co-owned by Donald Trump. Now, when the pageant was held in Moscow, and the bank's chairman, Herman Greff, attended a Moscow luncheon for Donald Trump. The Miss Universe event also led Trump and Aris Agalarov, a Russian oligarch developer who teamed with Trump to host a Miss Universe show in Russia, to start work in late 2013 on a Moscow Trump tower deal. So this has been in the works for quite a few years. So it was even before 2015, before the sanctions, they wanted to work on this deal, and they still wanted to work on this deal after the sanctions. So that's very important. Now, at the time, Sberbank provided Agalarov's Crocus Group, a group that I've talked about before, about $1.6 billion in financing for several real estate projects, including the potential Trump Tower. Now, that, unfortunately, for Trump, had fizzled because of those sanctions, or at least partly because of those sanctions. There were other arguments of whether or not, or of why that funding, that deal happened to fall through. Still, Trump was undeterred. Instead of getting money from Agalarov, he actually went to these IC partners, or what was it? IC, I can't remember. There's so much stuff here. IC Investment, Expert Investment Company, to try and secure funding through this business partner. Now, who is this business partner? Well, this is a man named Felix Sater. Now, the Washington Post also reported that after Trump signed a letter of intent with IC Expert in 2015, work began on recruiting an architect and lining up financing, and the middleman for this deal is Felix Sater. We've talked about him before. He had previously worked with Trump in the 2000s. Now Trump is saying, Felix Sater, who? I don't know anybody by that name, despite him having an office inside of Trump Tower where they had frequently run into each other. And this is partly where this deal had come from, because Sater said, I'd pass Trump on the hallway and I'd always pitch him some possible deals about doing some real estate deals over in Russia. Eventually, as we can see, Trump took him up on one of these offers, since his previous deal, the $1.6 billion from Agalarov, vanished because of the sanctions. But of course, this guy, Sater, is still getting money from one of the banks, Sberbank, that happened to be under sanction. So, now a little bit about Sater. I've talked about him, like I said, at length before. He was previously convicted of being part of a stock market scam between the mafia, the Russian mafia, the mafia and the Russian mafia. So they were working together in order to do some of these deals. So again, this is the people that Trump surrounds himself with. This is the people that he's willing to do business with if it means profit for Donald Trump. And look, at one point, Trump's personal attorney, Michael Cohen, emailed Vladimir Putin his office in order to try to get help to make this deal go through. Now, in a statement prepared for the House Intelligence Committee, Cohen noted that he had never received a reply. He also said that Trump eventually lost confidence in the Russian partner's ability to acquire the land and obtain approval to build the project. So that deal also went through. And now Sater, as I mentioned, he is cooperating with the FBI, cooperating with the Mueller investigation about Donald Trump's financial deals. So, and with this deal in particular. So that is not good. Now, the project, according to Cohen, ended in January 2016. That is shortly before Trump actually began winning in the primary. So, look, this entire thing, there are many central figures that continue to keep coming up. That's Felix Sater, Agalarov. There's some other, a couple of other people that keep popping up that are Russian billionaires, oligarchs, that are connected with Vladimir Putin. So this has got Russian government all over it. And fine, you want to work with the Russian government in order to build real estate, that's fine. But you're going to try to get past sanctions in order to do so. Well, that is, of course, against the law, since you're not supposed to deal with foreign countries and foreign governments that our government has actually sanctioned. So there's some problems here. So look, with all this, is it any wonder why Mueller is looking into this, right? Trump is super dirty. Like, you want to talk about draining the swamp? We invited the swamp into the White House. That's what this is. And look, don't tell me that Trump had no idea where the money for this deal could be coming from, right? He may be an idiot when it comes to politics and policy, but you have to at least be smart enough to know that you can't try to do deals with banks that are being sanctioned by your own country. I don't know. Look, maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he really is that stupid. Or maybe he's not stupid, or not just stupid, but also super, super corrupt, which says a lot about him and the decisions that he's made. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.